In the heart of the Rub al Khali, the empty quarter, there are places where time itself seems to disappear. A sea of dunes stretches endlessly in every direction, swallowing everything it touches. And somewhere in that ocean of sand, there once stood a village that no longer exists. They say it was buried overnight, a storm so massive, so violent, that an entire community vanished beneath it. Every home, every life, every trace, gone by morning, and for decades nobody could even prove it had ever been there. In the early 1980s, long before satellites mapped every inch of the Earth, there were small settlements scattered along the trade routes between Oman and Saudi Arabia. Tiny outposts, places where camel herders stopped to rest, traders exchanged goods, and families lived in mud brick homes built from desert clay. One of these was a little-known place called Al-Nasiriyah. It wasn't on any map, just a dot known by those who passed through. No airports, no roads, just sand. But in 1983, a storm rolled in that would change everything. Locals called it the breath of the desert. Winds so strong they stripped the dunes bare and built new ones overnight. It began in the late afternoon, a wall of sand stretching across the horizon, glowing red in the setting sun. The few travelers who survived said the sky looked like it was on fire. By midnight, visibility dropped to zero. And when dawn broke, Al-Nasiriyah was gone. Rescue teams tried to reach the coordinates reported by nearby villages, but all they found was a new ridge of sand stretching for miles. No roofs, no walls, no sound. The desert had rewritten its surface completely. At first, officials thought the settlement had simply been abandoned. People moved elsewhere, records lost. But the few who remembered said something stranger. Families were seen just hours before, lighting fires, cooking, preparing for prayer. Then, silence. And Al-Nasiriyah became a myth, one of many whispered by Bedouins who roamed the empty quarter. But in 2019, a satellite image changed everything. An independent researcher named Dr. Layla Husseini, studying shifting dune formations, noticed something unusual: a geometric pattern beneath the sand, perfectly square outlines arranged in rows, the kind of layout only human architecture could make. At first, she assumed it was an ancient ruin. It matched something modern, a village buried in the early 1980s. Intrigued, Dr. Husseini contacted the UAE's Department of Antiquities, requesting permission to send a ground-penetrating radar team. The response came 2 weeks later. No such records exist for any settlement in that area. But she didn't stop there. Layla cross-referenced weather archives from 1983 and found something chilling. On the night the storm supposedly hit, every meteorological station within 300 kilometers went offline for exactly 12 hours. When they came back online, their data logs were wiped. Months later, using private funding, Layla led a small expedition. She and her team reached the coordinates by drone convoy, a 6-hour trek across unbroken sand. When they arrived, the landscape was unnervingly smooth, like the desert had been ironed flat. No sign of vegetation, no debris, no life. Just silence. They set up the radar equipment, and within minutes, the screen filled with shapes. Rectangles. They decided to dig a small trench near the mosque. It took hours to remove the compacted sand, but when they finally reached the top of the structure, something impossible appeared. The paint on the walls, still visible. A turquoise blue, unweathered by time. Inside, they found something that stopped everyone cold. A wooden door, closed from the inside. Inside was a room untouched by time. Carpets still rolled, clay pots stacked neatly, and a lantern sitting on the floor as if waiting to be lit. No remains. Layla described it later in her notes. It felt like stepping into a memory that never ended. The air was dry, unmoving, as if time itself had frozen. But when they came back 2 days later, the equipment they left behind, gone too. It was as if the desert had undone their work. Their GPS logs still showed the coordinates, but the radar scanner refused to pick up the same signals. The readings were now blank. When they submitted their findings to regional authorities, the report was quietly dismissed, marked inconclusive. And within weeks, the private server hosting their radar images was hacked. All files deleted. A year later, a drone hobbyist exploring the empty quarter captured something eerie, a set of square indentations briefly visible between dunes after a rare desert flood. He uploaded the video to YouTube, and within days the footage went viral. People called it proof of the village that drowned in sand. Some called it fake. Others swore they saw figures, human shapes, walking among the ruins before the wind covered them again. The uploader deleted the video after receiving anonymous messages warning him to take it down. He never posted again. Where the radar had once detected structures, there were now perfect circular patterns, as if the sand had settled deliberately over the site. Climatologists say that's impossible. Wind doesn't form geometric patterns without obstruction, but something below the surface clearly was. In early 2022, a routine satellite update from a private company captured faint light signatures beneath the dunes. Thermal readings showed warmth, not from the sun, but from underground sources, exactly where Al-Nasiriyah once stood. Then they stopped, as if whatever was under there had powered down. The coordinates have been quietly removed from several mapping databases. Attempts to re-upload them trigger location-restricted warnings. But locals in Oman still tell stories of travelers who see faint lantern lights under the sand, like stars trapped below the earth. One Bedouin elder told a journalist, "The desert remembers everything. It just decides when to show you." Some say it was a simple environmental disaster, a village built on shifting ground, wiped away by the largest storm in recorded history. Others whisper that it wasn't just a storm, but something man-made. In the 1980s, satellite experiments and weather control programs were being tested across the region. Could this have been one of them gone wrong? A secret project that buried its evidence, literally, beneath the dunes? Or was it something older? Something that has always existed in the desert, a force that erases what doesn't belong? Today, if you stand in the empty quarter and listen closely, the wind sounds almost like a whisper, a low hum that shifts with the dunes echoing over the horizon. And sometimes, in the brief stillness after a storm, the sand settles just long enough to reveal the outline of a door, a wall, a roof, then swallows it again, as if the desert is breathing. Whatever the truth may be, the story of Al-Nasiriyah remains one of the strangest disappearances ever recorded, a reminder that nature, no matter how well we think we understand it, still holds secrets that defy explanation. And perhaps that's why the desert is so terrifying, because out there, silence isn't empty. It is full of things we are not meant to find. They say the sand buries everything, but sometimes it also remembers. And maybe one day, when the wind shifts again, Al-Nasiriyah will rise once more. If you think the desert only hides dust and bones, think again. Watch more HushAtlas mysteries, where the world's forgotten places tell stories the maps never could.